We're on. Thank you so much, Tom, once again for accepting my invitation. As I was saying, I was feeling like I played the lottery when I wrote you the message. I'm like, I will write to him. If he answers, okay. If not, I have nothing to lose. After seeing the reply, now I'm convinced I have to play the lottery. So, Tom Haak, director of HR Trend Institute, in fact, one of the people that drives me the most in everything I do in Romania with the HR school. Tom, can you tell us just a few things about yourself for those that have not had yet the chance to discover you, and now you're going to get new fans?
Yeah, of course, and thank you for your nice words and the compliments. That's let's say the purpose of the HR Trend Institute is to kind of inspire mainly people, but also other people in the area of HR. So that's my purpose. So if I succeed, even if it's sometimes a little bit, I'm happy.
I'm the
And
living proof
yeah.
of your success.
And so in the meantime, I founded the HR Trend Institute some 7 years ago. So 7 years ago, I started. I had a background. I have a background in international HR management for nice companies. So I worked for companies like KPMG and like Philips Electronics, like Aon, the insurance brokers, like Arcadis, an engineering
Wow.
design company. So those were the type of companies, generally internationally. And then I founded the HR Trend Institute because, so well, I'd like to do something a little bit different, and I like to be a little bit more at the front of innovation and new things. So that's I didn't know exactly how that was going to go, of course, 7 years ago, but since then, yeah, it's not so complicated. I try to track and follow what's going on. I try to make sense of it, and then I write about it, so people can find what I write generally on the website of hrtrendinstitute.com,
Mm-hmm.
or they link to me on LinkedIn, and then they can
Like
find
I
me
did.
as well, like you did. So I share articles, I share videos. So uh, uh, 6 months ago, I started the video series with Natal Denk. I don't know whether you have met Natal.
No, I haven't.
Natal is also an HR, yeah, kind of HR trend watcher, complementary to me. So she has uh, a lot more things on the plus side, but together we talk in those videos. It's called Talking HR Trends with Natal and Tom.
No.
So we weekly publish a 10-minute video around, yeah, something we find interesting. So videos, articles, and then I need to earn some money as well. Why not? So so I earn my money by giving presentations at conferences, generally international conferences. Pre-COVID, I traveled a lot. These days, I spent a lot of my time in my study and yeah, doing webinars, etc. And I also sometimes work with HR teams, so that's more in-house, an HR team that is working on their strategy, thinking about what are we going to do next year, and sometimes they want some outside view, they want some inspiration. So then I work with that team around issues that are important for them. But I don't do consultancy. Uh, it's more sharing what I see, discussing that with people, and trying to. I also spend quite some time with innovators, people who have new things. That's what keeps me going. If I learn about new things that organizations can use.
You have to give them back. I like the layout of your experience, and I like the outcome of it because that gives me a lot of confidence in the fact that HR people have multiple possibilities. It's not like they have to retire from an HR position. Look at you. You are having it in a very different, reinvented way. And I think that should be a very positive note for all the HR people in Romania. So, Tom, I was super curious to find out what would your opinion be regarding that thing you said in your video, no more HR business partner? Because I'm advocating super strongly in Romania for HR business partner, because that would be the next level for us. We're not there yet, you know. So
Yeah,
what
yeah,
should we
yeah,
do?
yeah, yeah.
Should we skip this one, burn bridges, burn stages, and just
No,
go
no, no,
next?
no, no, no. But I think that it's difficult to talk about one HR. So I think there it starts. So we should not talk about one HR, but it's about different, you could say roles, but different areas where HR can contribute.
Mm-hmm.
And you already mentioned one, and that's where a lot of people initially kind of start. And that's the area we want to help people.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an important area. eh? But that's the focus on how can we help people to do their jobs better or to be better humans, or you can put it as broad as you want.
Mm-hmm.
We should not forget that area. Yes, but
Okay.
yeah, there the focus is on the people,
Mm-hmm.
and often that's not that's a neglect today. I don't know about Romania. I don't know anything about Romania. As I said, I've only been there a couple of times, but uh, in many organizations that is neglected, that area, because HR maybe sometimes too much wants to be a business partner. They say,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're not there for the people, we're there for the business, for the organization. Yeah. And so one area is focus on the people.
Mm-hmm.
Call it employee success, people success. Another area, and you mentioned it as well, you called it secretary, but that is, you could say, HR operations.
Okay.
That's not an unimportant part of HR. Yes, because that most of the things in HR are in HR operations. Yeah,
True.
it's not unimportant. There's the organization has to run. People have to be hired. People have to be fired. People have to be in contract. People. So there's a lot of things to do in operations that are important. Yes. So let's not talk too negatively about that. Because it's whether we call it administration or operation, but that's an important area of HR.
Yep.
Then a third area, there you could say, well, that is around strategic advice, consulting, counseling. Uh, 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 that's the role in an organization where you say we have people who know, yeah, how what makes people tick and how can we organize people in the best possible way in order to reach our objectives. So that's also an important role.
Mm-hmm.
But well, in some organizations, uh, for example, the strategic role is filled in by other people or by consultants. I don't mind. It's not a matter. Oh, we should have everything. It's where can you contribute the most. So
Mm-hmm.
one is element is, I think we should not talk about one HR, but there are different parts of HR. The second is, it's not one size fits all because organizations are evolving. Organizations have different needs. So we cannot say, yeah, there's one way to the one best way to do HR. That doesn't make sense. And because every organization has different needs, they're on a different stage in their evolution.
Mm-hmm.
So that should also be taken into account. What do you need and which phase of the organization? Often, when you're small, probably it's more about operations.
Sure.
Yeah, making sure you can hire the people, you can find the people, so that we can grow. But those two elements are important. So let's not focus too much on one role.
Okay.
Say we need to be business partners if we're one. So yeah. But we need to have different roles and fill them as well.
Mm-hmm.
And are they all in one person? Well, that's not so easy because all those roles require different
Yep.
capabilities of people.
True.
yeah, it's not so easy to find them in one person. Eh? If
Exactly.
you're really keen and are get your energy out of helping people to become better and helping people to function better, etc., maybe then it's more difficult. Maybe you don't have a lot of affinity with analytics and finance and business strategies and those type of subjects. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Or if in operations, it's a lot about IT, it's
Mm-hmm.
about service delivery, but it's also about hospitality. It's That's not being tough, but it's being friendly and making sure people get the service they want. Well, often there is tension between the roles.
True.
Yeah. This area is also not so easy for HR because sometimes HR are more policemen especially in the past. Well, we have rules, stick to the rules. That's not service orientation. Service or you don't hide behind the rules. You
Yeah.
don't act like a bureaucrat. You say, okay, well, what are your needs, and how can we try to fulfill your needs in the best possible way? So it's a long answer, but I think that's important.
Perfect.
Different areas, of course, in the end, they are connected in a way because they're not totally separately.
True.
And look at the needs of the organization and the people in the organization because they differ a lot.
I love the answer, and I think I can explain that the context is in Romania. We can only kind of have the operation side of HR in most companies, and what I'm trying to do is raise the awareness on how important it is to have the other two functions as
Yeah,
well. And as you said, maybe we don't have budgets to bring so many people, but consultants are there. You can have part-timers, or maybe you actually have a gem in your operations team that want to develop in the rest of the areas, and you can just take that HR person to their next level.
absolutely. But it helps to be explicit
Mhm.
upfront
Yeah.
because often the people who are working a lot with the organization and working on the strategy, well, they are not always perceived by the people as people who are there to help them. They associate with the leaders, with the important people,
Sides.
yes.
Yeah, the sides.
And so that's an element of trust. And unfortunately, in quite some organizations, HR is not the most trusted, are not the most trusted people in the organization, and because they are the messengers of the boss sometimes, which is, I don't say it's bad, but if you're the messenger of the boss, well, maybe you are not in the best position to help people.
That's true. Yeah, I also think positioning as HR and a little bit of personal branding inside the organization cannot hurt. You need to know
Yeah.
exactly how the people are perceiving you, so you see if that helps or not your objectives. So thank
And
you so much. Mhm.
being independent in a way.
Yep.
But that's also difficult. Being independent is also, yeah, well, yeah, don't associate too much with one of the groups, but be independent and say, well, independent based on your professionalism, and that's where you're contributing with the HR school. But it has to be based on professionalism, because if not, then the question is, yeah, how
Who
do
are
you
you
think you're
actually
going to?
serving?
Yeah, yeah,
That sounds just great. And I also heard another thing in your video that I love, the anti-fragile. And I was like, what should that mean? Can you give us a little bit more context on why
of
should
course.
the trends in HR be searching for this anti-fragile personalities?
And it's an important concept. It's also partly surfaced more by the COVID-19 crisis. But if you talk to organizations, and many of the organizations say we want to become more resilient. Yes, because uh, we were a little bit confronted by this crisis. We want to be able to be better prepared for future crises and to be more, yeah, resilient in a way, to react to new circumstances. So
Mhm.
that's an important theme in the organizations. Nicolas Taleb, and he wrote a book called Anti-Fragile. he says, well, agile is, you could say, breakable, things that are fragile. What is the opposite of fragile? He said it's not concrete, or say robust, concrete, unbreakable. There's something beyond that. He calls it, and he introduced the concept of anti-fragile. That is things that benefit from crisis situations, that benefit, that bounce back at a higher level. So it's more than resilience. It's benefiting from adverse conditions.
Wow, that's super interesting.
Yes, so anti-fragile. I can recommend the book. It's by it's yeah. You can see it over there. I see the back.
Okay.
It's this is the book. Yeah, I think this is the book. Nicolas
Thanks.
Taleb.
Thank you for the
Yeah,
recommendation.
and he wrote a couple of good books. I don't yet. Another very excellent one of him is The Black Swan.
Hmm. You gave us
But
a
you can
lot
also
to
find
read.
video. Yeah, but so this is now your question is okay. Intuitively, people feel this is an interesting concept. Yes.
Mhm.
Now the question is okay. Organize. What can organizations do to kind of enhance anti fragility in
Mhm.
organizations and in the people in organizations? What can you do? Can we? Yeah. Can we? How do we become more anti fragile?
Wow.
And we have seen already in the last years that some people and organizations have indeed benefited from the crisis, not
Mhm.
always in an ethical good way, but certainly organizations have been. And we all know people that flourish under adverse conditions. Yeah, if you push them, well, don't do that because then yeah. So we all know those people. So the question is, are there characteristics of those people? Because then one intervention we can do is in our selection process, look more for those type of people. Yeah.
Cool.
And I won't explain that today extensively, but there are ways that we can do that, even with a traditional Big Five personality test. You can already say, well, the Big Five personality test? Yeah. So in the Big Five, for example, the first dimension in the Big Five is openness dimension. You can imagine that people who are more open can be more anti-fragile because then you say, oh well, yeah,
They're
let's
curious.
see.
They're
Yeah,
curious. They want to
yeah.
test things. They have the perspectives.
And the last dimension is neuroticism. If you score high on neuroticism, well,
They're
that's
not
not.
that anti-fragile.
You don't want that. Yeah, you want low on neuroticism, high on openness. Well, but that's only one intervention. And if you are creative, you can think about what are interventions that can help to make organizations and people more anti-fragile. I'll give you one other example. That is more in the organization structure. You can imagine that some organizational structures are more anti-fragile than others. I exaggerate, but the traditional hierarchical
Mhm.
organization is not so. Yeah, they don't in crisis situations. That is sometimes a problem, especially when the new circumstances are not known,
Okay.
because then people are waiting for instructions from the top. Hey,
True.
boss, what should we do? We're waiting. Yeah, or government, what should we do? While if you are organized more in small, self managed teams that are independent, then you are a lot more because those teams immediately start to react. They're not waiting for instructions, but they are starting to say, hey, new circumstances. What can we learn? So in your organization structure, you can help the organization to become more anti-fragile.
Wow. I love this perspective. We're actually looking on how we can grow in adverse situation. And I think this is how everyone should have approached the pandemic. Unfortunately,
And there's one counter, you could say a partly counterintuitive element
okay.
that is uh, you there is evidence that people who are more exposed to adverse conditions become more resilient at least and you could say hopefully also more anti-fragile. There's not real evidence for that because the concept anti-fragility has not been researched so in depth. But people, you can imagine that if you are not exposed to adverse conditions, you don't learn to do. Yeah?
True.
But now many HR practices of today are maybe a little bit too protective for people.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you pamper people too much, if you focus too much on happiness, pampering, then, well, you make people less resilient.
I actually heard about the theory of constraint. I hope in English
Yeah.
I'm saying it right. And
Theory of constraints. Yeah.
I don't remember the name of the author, but somebody was telling me that, hey, actually, when you have everything in perfect order, innovation,
Yeah.
success is not going to appear. So you might have to artificially create a constraint,
Yeah.
like take a resource,
Yeah.
take time, just to make people drive
You
it.
need friction. Some good things come out of friction.
Mhm.
Oh, if your aim is to avoid friction at all time, that does not helpful.
Yeah.
And we know that also from the education of the raising of children.
Yep.
If you always keep the knives away from the kids,
Doesn't work.
they don't even know what a knife is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So as long as you can keep them away, they are safe. But the moment they
You
find a
find
knife, they don't know what it is. You better expose them.
yeah.
Not to. It's not a good example with the
But
knives, maybe,
it's actually quite good just because
but
we
it's in combination. Sorry to. So it's exposing in combination with a psychological safe environment. So that's an other dimension.
yeah.
So create an environment where people feel psychological safe, but at the same time find ways to expose them. That's not. I don't say it's easy, but it can be helpful. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that HR, if they put their mind to it, they can help managers
Sure.
creating this kind of situation. So you've explained to us what anti-fragile means, and I love the concept. And I wish everyone would have known that before COVID, so they wouldn't have
Yeah.
panicked that much. And I heard about another cool thing you said in your video, uh, skill mapping.
Skill mapping.
So
Yeah.
I keep on saying, like, for years and years, that we should hire a bit more for potential. We should look a bit more on not necessarily who the person was, but who it can become with the resources they have. So I'm really curious to see how you look at this skill mapping trend.
Yeah. It's a couple of different. One trend is that we go a little bit away from jobs.
Mhm.
Yes. So we all know jobs, and jobs are a big, you could say, container of all things that we
You
have
need to do.
clustered together.
Mhm.
Yes. Saying, in this job, you have to do this and this and this and this, and in order to be able to do that, you need all these kind of skills, which makes us in a way more inflexible, because who fits exactly in those boxes? Yes. And how flexible are you? So you see organizations moving away from those predefined jobs,
Mhm.
saying, well, maybe we should organize more around roles. So in a project or in a task we have to do, we can distinguish different roles, but they are more flexible. So let's say we need someone to do note taking. So my role in this project is note taking, but in another project it can be something different. So uh, roles are more flexible and generally also a little bit smaller area.
Okay.
In the end, you can translate it to skills. What are the skills you need in order to be able to fulfill the role? If you want note taking, you have to be able to listen, you have to be able to write, you have to be able to summarize. So there's a couple of skills you need to do. Um, if your organization is more organized in not necessarily self-managed teams, but in teams, then it becomes a little bit easier to say, okay, for this project, for this task, what roles do we need to fill and what skills do we need? And
Mhm.
where are the people who have these skills at the required level?
Oh, okay.
Not a job, but a skill. So you can say, well, Tom can maybe do 20 skills at a certain level.
Wow.
Yes. I'm making it up, and I'm sure I can come up with 20. Yes. Um, and now you can say, well, we need skill A. Yeah. Who is available with skill A on the required level? So you can make a puzzle. Yeah.
Mhm.
And you make a team out of the puzzle you have.
Wow.
And that makes you a lot more flexible. So that's
Yes.
one element. Yes. Now you can imagine that certain skills are scarce. We know that. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's also an advantage not to split, not to use jobs as a big container, but sometimes because people in a job, they do too many things which don't play to their strengths and to
Yeah.
their core skills. They have
And
to do a
that
lot of
gives them a
things. And
lot
say,
of
well, why
disengagement.
do I have to do it?
Yep.
Yeah. So now some skills are scarce.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say skill A is scarce. Yes? We don't have enough people inside, outside with that skill. Now we can say, okay, we're desperate, we cannot, yeah. But if you have made intelligent, and that's the point of skill mapping, then you can say, well, we have looked at people in our organization, but maybe also outside the organization. And of course, the more volume you have, the better it is. And there are outside companies doing this at the moment. You say some skills tend to come together. You understand?
Mhm.
Uh, like running and walking. It's not a good example. But you say, well, people who walk,
Can also run.
yeah, maybe the other way around, it's even easier. So people who run can certainly walk. Yeah. And they might like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So walking and running, those are adjacent skills. Yes. And maybe also looking, because if you're running fast, you have to fast process what's happening in your environment. Yeah. So fast information processing, running, walking,
Yeah.
adjacent skills. I don't know whether the example is totally right, but you can,
It
yeah.
makes sense, at least to me.
Yeah. So now you cannot find enough runners. So the running skill, we're out of running skill. They say, well, let's look at the adjacent skills.
Mhm.
Maybe some of the walkers
Can also
we
run.
can, and they at least they can walk, so we can learn them how to run.
That's
Or
cool.
yeah, so it broadens your horizon to
Mm-hmm.
look in recruitment. It also gives you power for development, because you can say to people who walk, say, well, people like you who walk
Can also run.
often like running as well. Would you like to learn how to run?
Yeah.
Yes.
That
And
would.
cycling is far further away. I say, well, yeah, from cycling to running, hmm, maybe you can do it, but the more adjacent, probably the easier it is.
And better chances to get to the
Yeah.
next level.
And with technology of today, so the skill map can be made often with technology, the help of technology. Yeah. You can make those skill maps. I know software that can do that. So you don't have to do it all manually.
Wow, that's cool.
There's software that can help you. And then you can be more creative in. Uh, Now, one other element that is important, and that reflects to your question, what are you hiring for? Huh?
Mhm.
And so one is around the skills, but if you look at companies and the trend, yes, of course, they are looking for certain skill sets,
Mhm.
but they are also more and more looking at the personality of people. We already discussed anti-fragility.
Yeah.
If people have a certain basic set of skills and they have an anti-fragile personality,
Combined.
or combined, or but also sometimes you hear about learning agility as a trait that is important. uh,
Mhm.
is connected to the anti, but learning agility is important because those are people who can are eager to learn new things and can learn new things. So uh, it is interesting to learn to hire people with those type of personalities, because you don't know exactly what you need in the future. But then you better have people who are eager and willing to learn based on a basic skill set, because the more skills you bring to the table, yeah, the easier it is to learn new things. Yeah. So that is also an important. And then the third element organizations are looking for is, you could say, the cultural fit. Eh?
Okay.
Do you have the skills? Do you have the personality? But also, do you fit in our organization? That's more. Yeah. Do you want to do it with us? Do you fit? And that's the cultural fit, which is important.
And I hope it's going to gain a lot of importance in Romania as well. I have to admit it hasn't been that important in the recruitment process until now. But for about like 2-3 years since the employer branding also started to take
Yeah.
place in Romania, I see more and more focus from companies in trying to find people that are a good fit into their
That's
culture.
important. But most companies, not only in Romania, are still hiring for jobs.
I know
You-
job descriptions.
Job
There's no,
description, and it's moving, but relatively slowly. But that is very organization centric as well, because you say, this is what
not
we
people
want.
centric. Yeah.
Who fits in the box, instead of doing it the other way around and saying, okay, well, let's see what you can bring to the table, and how can we best use your capabilities, wishes,
Bring
needs.
most value.
Yeah.
Yeah, it actually, to me, this is like a paradox because you hire a specialist to do things the way you want.
Yeah.
So this is your job. This is how you have to do it. That's the objective, but please go there on my terms.
Yeah.
Then why did you pay the specialist to do stuff? Like just let him be, let him put his skills to work, let him bring the most value that he can by using his skills and not stumble upon fixed job descriptions. I am totally on.
But it leads to many organizations also have these models,
Mhm.
like the leadership model, the talent model.
Yeah.
And generally, uh, uh, let's say it's maybe better to use the strengths of people and the things they like and the things they can do, instead of saying everybody.
Sure.
Yeah. For example, a good example always, everybody needs to be a good team player. But some people are not good team players. Then we can say, okay, sorry, we cannot use you. But there are a lot of jobs, quite some jobs, I don't know a lot, but quite some jobs where you don't have to
Be
work in a team,
Mhm.
where you have to be very disciplined and very meticulous in checking things or controlling things, or very diligently. Well, we need people for that type of work as well. Maybe they are not good team workers. Who cares?
So basically, the conclusion I'm hearing is let's just use people for their strengths, help people
Yeah.
work on their strength while also help them improve whatever weaknesses they have. Let's just help them
Yeah,
bring them.
but focus more on the strengths,
Yeah,
because
the focus more on the strength.
often you see, but there is always a tendency to focus more on the weaknesses. Yeah, this is good, this is good, this is, but yeah, yeah, sure, yeah, but maybe better focus on how can you make the strength stronger,
That's
because then you can come to top performance. And of course, everybody needs to. There are standards that everybody has to adhere to,
true.
like for example ethical standards. We don't want people who are unethical, for example. So there are basic standards
You have to comply to.
that apply for everybody.
But it's cool you said about the ethics because you probably knew. I want to ask you now, and it's my final question about ethical leadership.
Yeah.
Another trend you say HR should be taking in consideration.
And that's a big point, and I'm sure also in Romania, that there are there are a lot of things happening inside organizations, but also outside organizations that are in a way not acceptable. eh. So there is some organizations create toxic workplaces. Uh, there's always a lot of harassment, discrimination,
bullying.
racism. There's many things going on in
Yeah.
organizations, not only in Romania, everywhere. So I'm not corruption. And the question is, for me, I focus on HR, but it's of course a wider question. But for me, the question is, what is HR doing? Eh? Is HR willing to confront those issues? Is HR able and willing to do something about it, to confront management with behavior which is unacceptable? Is HR willing to protect whistleblowers? Is HR willing to do really something to take action on inequality in organizations? Because there's a lot of inequality that we can tackle if we want. And so, in my view, and that might be a little bit too paternalistic, but in my view, yes, HR can play a role, should play a role, and is not playing that role to the extent that we would expect it. And we still see that. Well, I see examples also in the Netherlands maybe not every day, but every week,
Yeah.
that harassment cases pop up, for example, at universities. And then if the journalist dives into it, it turns out often that has been going on for years and years. Everybody said, "Wow, that professor,
That's
we knew it." Huh?
that's how
We
things are here.
Yeah, that's
I
how things
also
are. It's not so bad, or maybe it's exaggerated, or yeah, we don't have we're not absolutely sure. Uh,
we should have investigated, right?
you know all those things.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I hear them also. Mainly in Romania, what I hear the most, because I also work with candidates. Like on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, I have Tuesdays, I give free advice to everyone about their careers, their profiles, anything
Yeah.
they need from me. So people come to me and they tell me about awful things that are happening in the companies. I mean, sometimes I hear the stories and I'm questioning, is this 2021 or are we in the Prezozoic
Yeah.
area? Like, what's this? What's happening? How is HR allowing this? And they're like, HR doesn't care. So when I hear that, I like immediately click. What do you mean HR doesn't care? That's their job. That's why they're there. So just go tell them. No, it makes no point, because this is how things are around here. So what I actually think is that I would also, if you allow me, put this on the shoulders of HR. We need to be change agents. We need to be the one that make the diagnostic. We see where the problem is, and we have to take responsibility. And I think this ethical leadership actually speaks for it. We need
Absolutely.
to bring it to attention. We
It's not
need
easy. That's the point. It's
no.
not easy. So it's not. It's not easy, but at the same time, it's unacceptable. And the recruitment process is a good example. There's always happening terrible things.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, Even in the pre-selection, candidates don't notice it. But if you have the wrong name or the wrong whatever address name, people are not selected and not invited even for interviews. That's happening today everywhere.
In Romania, it's a big problem with age. If you're over 40, nobody reads your
Yeah,
resume anymore. It's a huge issue in
it's
Romania.
age, but it's also a certain ethnical background or
Yeah.
whatever. Absolutely.
Yeah,
So that's
well,
ethical leadership, and the expectations are more and more that organizations and people they take a point of view that to say, well, it's yeah, we have to play a role.
we need to start from somewhere, and I think we should stop waiting for others to do something about it, and we should
Exactly.
start doing something about it. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. I
really
think
happy
so.
we had the chance to have this talk. I'm super happy. These are the trends that are coming. I hope they will come to Romania a bit earlier, not in 10 years. So I encourage everyone from my network, all the people in HR community, to follow you and see the insights you're bringing. So let's just bring the change a bit faster. Let's not
Absolutely.
wait for 10
Yeah.
years. And in the end, I was wondering, would you give like a piece of advice to the HR community from Romania? What would be that?
Yeah. there's,
Broad. That's broad.
generally, if there's one piece of advice I can give, but that's an enormous open door. But work evidence based, use people analytics, and use what you've learned at your universities around psychology and other social sciences. Use that. So don't go too much with assumptions. Don't go too much with the gut feel of people, but base it on your professionalism. And that's where HR has to bring something to the table. I think HR is a profession, and we should show that. And as you said, it's not a profession, a narrow profession. It's a very broad profession with a lot of multidisciplinary elements. That's why it's such an interesting profession, I would say. Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
so
I'm in love with my
yeah.
profession, and I think it's the best. I don't know if I chose it or it chose me, but I'm happy we ended up in this relation. Tom, million thanks for all the details, all the information, and your thoughts on everything. And I think you got yourself a person that's going to keep on bugging you from now on, and probably when everyone.
No, I'm happy to help, and I wish you success with the HR school. And I think it's super important to drive the profession to the next level, and we need people like you doing that. So
Thank you so
absolutely.
much. Thank
All
you.
right,
Bye.
take care.